Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and video view series where I take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. This video will be reviewing the one-shot adventure The Surrounded, designed by Erdem Acir for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider using my affiliate links for your online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. Shoutouts to my Platinum patrons, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Manuel, Basil, Wizard, Princess, Christopher, Dave, By Inspection, and Star Loverly. And Gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy Yuma, Marcos Did, Vicente, Gilberto, Adam, Dead Lizard Lounge, Sam, Arash, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Fatboy 619, Sklenia, Nick, and Farty McButterpants. Thank you all very much for your support. So, player infighting is not something you typically want to encourage in D&D. This is a team-based game. You know, a lot of DMs, they ban evil players or chaotic, stupid players, and, you know, the end goal of whatever kind of players you want to be or story you want to tell is that the players are on a team, you're in it together, you can have your own personal quests and stuff, which is something I definitely support. But in general, you don't want to have the players, you know, steal from each other or fight each other and all that, with some very careful caveats if, you know, your players are actually, you know, into the story and the role playing, and maybe it makes sense in the context. You can't, I don't, you know, not a blanket ban on that, but just be very, very careful on doing that. The Surrounded introduces straight up PvP D&D, and it does so through two important methods. First of all, it's a one-shot with pre-made characters. That's the key. These aren't beloved, you know, characters as part of a campaign you've been playing. This is a one-shot. You're given character sheets, and you're given these roles to play. And the second part is these characters all have, most of them have, secret hidden agendas that are in opposition to the other player characters. So it's kind of like those, like a dinner murder mystery event or something where you're given all these roles and they've got secret, you know, envelopes that kind of tell you information and things. This doesn't go to that extent, which I would love to see a proper D&D adventure that did that with the players involved instead of just a bunch of NPC. I have seen ones where the NPCs all have their secret things, but to have the players involved directly, that's something I don't think I've seen before. It's set up like a fairly, you can tell by the dragon on the cover, which is kind, I mean, it's a lovely looking dragon, but kind of a generic, you know, D&D thing, as kind of a generic D&D quest where you have to go fight a dragon. Yes, there is a dragon here. And the idea is the betrayal between all the party members doesn't occur until the climactic end. If you've played Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which is a really fun D&D themed version of Betrayal at, what is it, House on the Hill, I think, then where it's the same concept. You're all in a team together, and then something triggers a betrayal where one person, usually one person, turns into an evil, you know, villain, and all the other players have to fight them. In this case, the players are designed to fight their way to a it's not a big dungeon. It's like just a one, you know, you go to the dragon's lair, you fight the dragon, and when you get to what you're trying to get, which is a dragon egg, the players all have different motivations for getting that egg that should be revealed at that time, and then it becomes this interesting PvP, hopefully interesting PvP event. So, you know, I was very trepidatious about how this worked and how you do this without any hard feelings or just super going off the rails. And I think the adventure does a smart job of emphasizing that all the player characters need that dragon egg, and the only way to get it is by working together because you have to fight this freaking dragon. And so you're supposed to keep everybody on board till the end, and then it becomes a big kind of reveal. But you kind of know I think you would know that this reveal is coming because you're playing pre-made characters and the DM is secretly getting with everybody and saying, okay, here's your secret. So the players kind of already know, you know, it's not going to come out of left field, I don't think, in terms of how this is going to work, but they're not going to probably be aware of what the secrets are. I am a little disappointed that there's not a lot of ways to... It seems like the adventure doesn't properly exploit the fact that everybody's got hidden agendas. Instead, it really plays it pretty straight as just a very stereotypical kind of one-shot D&D adventure. In this case, in the Kingdom of Cormyr, a dragon egg has been stolen. A gold dragon egg has been stolen by a red dragon, and the queen has, you know, called a bunch of adventurers, although one of them is a purple dragon knight, to go and retrieve this egg. And these are pre-made characters of tier 3. They're level, I believe, 10 through 14. They are not all balanced against each other, which is important for their secrets. So you're told to go to this dragon's lair and retrieve this egg, and the secret is that all the players need the eggs needs this egg for different reasons. So there are 4 roles to play. One of them is you have no real secret agenda. You're basically just who you say you are. That's the big secret. You are Sir Gawain, I believe, is the one who is the honest one. He is like just a level 14 knight, very stalwart and just kind of stereotypical knight character, and just is trying to retrieve the egg as part of the quest. Like, that's his whole job. 2 of the player characters were supposed to be heroes, also from Cormyr, that were kind of traveling to get there, but on their way, they were ambushed by Zentarum, murdered, and replaced with 2 Zentarum agents. So they are just straight up imposters who are after the egg just for monetary reasons. So the secret is, not only are they not who they say they are, but they're also in cahoots with each other. But on the flip side, they're not as powerful as what they should be. So the 4th one is a wizard who probably has the craziest secret, is that he is actually a red dragon, but he's not a red dragon in disguise. He's a red dragon who's been polymorphed into a wizard, basically. And the only way for him to unpolymorph, to break this curse or whatever it's been put on him, is to cast a ritual, and he's got the scroll capability to do that, but he needs a gold dragon egg in order to complete the ritual. So all the characters are after the egg for different reasons. They've got their different motivations, and the adventure doesn't try to do like a Usual Suspects or The Thing, or what's the Tarantino movie, Hateful Eight, where it's all about like who's who and suspicions and all that. It doesn't try to do that angle or Clue. Instead, it plays it basically as a straight up adventure where you set off towards this dragon lair. There's all of like 3 events that occur. First of all, there's an optional bard that can follow you around, and I don't really see the point of that. At first, I was like, oh, this is interesting, because it mentions the fact that obviously the Zentarum agents aren't really going to know their roles that well. I mean, you can decide as the DM how much they've been prepped on their intel, I guess. So maybe there's a little interesting thing there, but I don't think the adventure wants the players to necessarily suspect each other until they get to the end. It's supposed to be this complete twist. But again, you're playing a one-shot with pre-made characters. You probably all know each other, or have been given these private briefings with the DM, or maybe you haven't. If you're playing online, maybe you can get away with that. So I have a feeling that's kind of part of the adventure, but it doesn't try to do the big suspect thing, the whodunit, none of that. Instead, you journey over there. There's one event where you see a town that's been burned down by the dragon, and there's nothing really to do there. You just kind of talk to these poor dying knights. The second thing is that you have to cross this river, which involves probably a skill check, and there's all these different ways you can do it. As I said, you're tier 3, so the wizard has levitate, the cleric has water walk, which is interesting that the Zentarum replaced the characters, but functionally they're actually pretty similar. I think they're not supposed to be as strong as the original people, but they still have they replaced the cleric character with another person with a cleric stat block, as far as I'm aware. But the idea is they're supposed to all work together. There's a single combat fight with a bunch of lizards who are the minions of the dragon. It feels, I'm a mixed feelings about this, because on the one hand I can see why you want to try to play it off as a regular D&D adventure because the big twist is still to come. But on the other hand, it just comes off as kind of a mundane, routine D&D adventure, nothing special about it, and it waits until that final act to unleash the twist. You actually make it all the way to the Red Dragon Lair, which we do get maps for this stuff, by the way. We get a region map, which is kind of cool, of Cormyr, which not enough, as far as I know, no D&D 5e adventures takes place in this region, despite it being used for previous editions, so I appreciate we get some of that here. There's a little map you can use for, I believe this is maybe for the lizard. Oh, this is a region map, actually, yeah. Which is fun. I mean, they're not gridded maps, but they look really good. They're full-color maps. And then this is the actual Dragon's Lair, which has this hidden bridge to the actual treasure room, and you can fight the dragon in this final room. And you do fight an adult red dragon, and it's just a straight-up fight between all the players. And there's no real notes about, should the players start to try to, get some of the others in bad positions and get them hurt, or kind of play against each other, because you got to imagine that sitting in the back of all the players' minds, especially the Zentarum agents, who it would be in their best interest to have other players, be weakened before having to take on, before, revealing the big twist. So I was thinking there would be more notes about that and more like, what if the players, like, what if one of them dies here, or, what can the players do? I just imagine that players knowing this information ahead of time, that especially once the dragon is defeated, which is a good note to keep the players together until that moment. Like, that you do have to fight this dragon, and it was in your best interest to all be there to fight that. But during the fight, maybe somebody shoves somebody into the lava, for example, and starts taking damage. Like, you could have the betrayal, because it's kind of up to the players at that point. You can't really stop them. You've given them license to kill each other, essentially. I could see that happening, and I don't think that necessarily makes it any less memorable. I think having, in fact, the betrayal happen during the Red Dragon fight could be really freaking crazy. But the adventure doesn't seem to accept that as a possibility. Instead, it assumes the players all play nice together. They're designed to, it's a big team building exercise across the river, fight the lizard folk, fight the dragon, which I do love that we get separate monster tactics for all of the 2 combat fights, the lizard folk and the adult red dragon. It's not the most attractive layout. It's got, very obvious, the 2 columns. It's pretty basic, like standard stock art, very small. I'm not a fan of the red on the brown parchment, but I love these little monster tactics sidebars. I like getting monster tactics for all my fights anyway, and I think this looks really good and is just very helpful for me as a DM, even though there's only those 2 fights. Then the action, unfortunately, kind of falls apart once it gets to the actual climactic betrayal, which, assuming everything has gone according to plan, which we all know how that works in D&D, the players, they see this illusory bridge, they go and see the treasure, and then there is the gold dragon egg, and at that moment, the adventure literally says, and I'm just going to read it to you, "The real battle begins now. Keep in mind, you just fought adult red dragon. From this point on, the DM has no agenda to push and shouldn't provide any guidance to the players. The evil players will be making their advances to the dragon egg." Okay, you're presuming a lot here. "Some players keep their secrets for the later stages of the game and wait for the right moment to strike. Others try to trick the other players, and there are some who look for an open confrontation right away. Whatever the result is, it is up to the players to decide how the game will advance from here on. The DM should only take the role of the referee." So, I get what it's saying, but at the same time, the adventure is kind of throwing its hands up and saying, all right, I've gotten you as far as I can. Now, hopefully, the players can craft the rest of the story. And obviously, in D&D, the players are always crafting part of the story. But it just feels like we're missing some information. We're missing like another page of information. Now, this one does say there are conditions for how each player wins, which, as I mentioned, the Zentarum just want the egg to sell it for money. Various needs the wizard needs the egg to actually transform himself into a dragon, and Sir Gawain just wants the egg to complete the quest. It doesn't mention, for example, it takes the wizard 2 rounds to cast a spell from a spell scroll, which will break the curse or enchantment or whatever on him and allow him to transform into an ancient red dragon, which is his full stat block. It doesn't mention, like, mechanically, does he have to maintain concentration for 2 full rounds, or like, how does that work? So there needs to be a little bit more information there. It does mention like some weird what ifs for the Zentarum, like maybe they want to team up against, with Sir Gawain against Various and then stab him in the back, or do the other way. Like, yeah, those are obvious options. So I think we're just missing some information here at the end. I'm not a fan of how the adventure just kind of gives up on trying to actually create what should be the hallmark big moment of this entire adventure, which is the actual betrayal. And it doesn't mention, like, what if everybody wants to play it cool here? We're like little Fonzies, we're all playing it cool, and we say, okay, we got the egg, let's get back. And then, they want to do something like they have to cross that river again, for example, and then something happens there. They want to shove somebody to the lava. Maybe it doesn't come down to just a generic fight in the treasure room. Maybe it can come later on. And I feel, and yes, the adventure says, well, let the players dictate that, but I feel like it would be helpful if the DM designer said, hey, or, and especially if they've play tested this before, and then say, hey, here are some possibilities that can occur, here are different things, and if the players are really playing it straight all the way to the end, then here, as the DM, here are complications you can arise. Like, for example, there's an earthquake that makes it so you have to, like, help some of the other players. Everybody has to make a save or they fall, and you can do that classic moment where, that's, I don't know, Scar and Mufasa, and they're hanging on, and you can let them drop or something. Like, aha, I was evil all the time. There's things the DM can introduce as complications to facilitate this betrayal, just in case, because who knows how your players are doing this. And again, it could have happened before this whole thing occurred, where the players are fighting against each other. And what if who the ancient red dragon wizard is, what if if he can see this illusory bridge and be able to find the egg early and sneak out of the fight? Like, you could have let that happen. Maybe he transforms into an ancient red dragon. Then you've got real problems because you just fought this adult red, or maybe you're in the middle of the adult red dragon. So there's a lot of things that can happen here, which are both exciting and terrifying from a DM's point of view, from me looking at it. I do like the idea behind it. I think it's very fascinating and interesting. I would almost prefer if it did more of the clue, the thing, some kind of self-contained area where everybody was already suspicious of each other. And that becomes a much different kind of adventure, but that would be a very interesting one to do. Versus one that's basically everybody's got their own agenda, and we're just going to have this kind of routine D&D adventure as a, one-shot, and then have this betrayal. The one thing that does make it very unique from what I was expecting is the fact that all those characters you're playing are tier 3, and you're actually legitimately fighting an adult red dragon. Like, that is, you're expecting to play just, a tier 1 just because everything's tier 1. So that actually surprised me and impressed me quite a bit that it goes that far. Unfortunately, as you can see here, as good as the maps are, the character sheets are terrible. And this is such a big part of the adventure, is that you're supposed to be giving players these pre-made character sheets that have all their stats and information ready to go. And as you can see here, first of all, it looks weird. I don't know why the designer did it this way, where it's this own little, obviously like Word document version. It's you can easily find those stat blocks, that the official stat blocks that Wizards does, and incorporate that into your DM's Guild product. I'm not sure why that wasn't used here, because if there was ever an adventure you needed good character sheets to give your players, it's this one. For example, it doesn't even have the spell list for the cleric, and it just mentions, hey, refer to the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide to complete character creation. No, screw that. You're providing me these character sheets as pre-made characters. You need to give me the full-on stat block character sheet for these characters and have them ready to go, including all the spells and stuff. You shouldn't have people build their own stuff. That shouldn't be part of a one-shot that includes pre-made characters. So I had a major problem with that. First of all, these are not attractive looking at all. And second of all, they're incomplete. They just don't have all the information. They don't have, the saving throw proficiencies or certain spell lists and things. It's just, it doesn't work for me at all. So that's a major knock against it. But I think despite that, it's got a really, really cool idea. If it works well, I think it could be a really different one-shot. The idea of, your players having that secrets, kind of like Rime of the Frostmaiden introduced, which is everybody's got their own player secrets. But in this case, the secrets are tied to the main quest, and smartly, hopefully, keeps the players allied with each other long enough to get to that point, and then it becomes a betrayal. And, if things go according to plan, then it should hopefully be a fairly memorable adventure. Let's go over my pros and cons for The Surrounded. Pros: an intriguing PvP setup that features pre-made characters with dark secrets. I just mentioned I actually like the entire premise of this adventure, and I like the idea, even though I would also like to see somebody make one that was just and you have to include some NPCs too, but that was that classic, there's, 7 or 8 characters in a single area that all suspect each other, and there's a killer and something's going on. That would be a really fun one. This is not that, but I think it still does a pretty decent job of introducing that, some people aren't who they say they are kind of idea. Pro: full of color region and battle maps, so they are gridless, but they still look pretty cool, and it's nice that we get little maps for a relatively short one-shot. And pro: monster tactics sidebars for combat encounters, even though there's not a lot of combat here, but there are 2 encounters, and I really appreciate anytime I'm given specific tactics on how to run encounters, and I think they look good with this little half-naked, demon man showcasing them is nice. Cons: I don't like that the end kind of lacks DM information. It just says the climactic betrayal should happen here, and here's a few ideas for the players to pull off, but there's not enough information there. I don't like that it's left completely up to the players, and that the design just kind of throws up its hands and says, good luck, DM. I think it's missing a good page of information on how things can happen, as well as I mentioned, introducing some complications as a DM you could use to, you know, change things around depending on if your play, you know, what your players are doing. And the other con is that the pre-made characters are incomplete, which seems really egregious for one that needs those character sheets pre-built, ready to go. You have to hand them over to your players. Give me like actual handout character sheets that I can use, and definitely have them complete with all their spell lists and stuff so that we are ready to go, because we don't want any kind of questions on that. Final verdict. Player infighting is typically discouraged in D&D, but the Surrounded offers an interesting twist on PvP D&D, courtesy of a shared agenda and dark secrets. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson, and you can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.